If you have any questions at all throughout, I'll also save plenty of time at the end to answer any and all questions that you guys may have. But hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Lauren Sakalius, and I'm one of the registered dietitians for Arch Amenities Group. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to all of you today during the start of March, which is National Nutrition Month. And today we're going to be talking about gut health and immunity. And this is a really big topic area that can affect a lot of people, as the gut plays, a huge role in our overall health. So I'm really excited to talk with all of you about how nutrition plays a large part in how our gut functions, and ideally what we want to be consuming to help it function optimally. And again, if there are any questions at all during this, please feel free to type your questions into the chat box, or I'll also save time at the end to answer questions for you guys. Okay, but with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So just a couple of quick things. Our digestive system, it's really closely linked to our health, right? So it's not just about digesting food and absorbing nutrients. While those are important things, our digestive system is really closely linked to things like our immune system, our nervous system, and also even just things like hormonal balance. So if you can really, understand the digestive system's complex role, then you'll see how digestive issues and dysfunction, just not functioning optimally, can result in a lot of different symptoms that can negatively impact our health if they're not taken care of in a timely fashion. So today I'm just going to go over a few things that contribute to that digestive dysfunction and then what we can do about it. It's really common for people to treat digestive symptoms they may have with medication. So even just things like Tums, or different, acid reflux medications, and even just like seasonal allergies. So things like Allegra, Claritin, etc. All of those things, a lot of times we use to mask symptoms that we may have. However, if we really follow the right nutrition, potential supplementation, and then lifestyle factors, it can really help kind of heal the gut and ideally kind of get to the root of the issues that maybe your body is having. So that's really what I'm going to try to cover as best as possible today. Okay. So just a couple of quick stats about digestion first, just so you guys kind of have an idea of how many people this really affects. But digestive diseases are one of the most prevalent causes of disability in the workforce. And every year, digestive disease can affect anywhere from 60 to 70 million people. Over 4 million people can be hospitalized a year. 72 million have some sort of ambulatory care visit, and over 200,000 deaths. And this is all from trends in medical visits for digestive diseases from the end of 2019. So the likelihood of those numbers actually being higher in the last few years is definitely there. And then also, this is just from people who actually, do go to their doctor, the stats. So there's plenty of people too that, if you have digestive issues, maybe people aren't actually seeking help, or maybe, doctors too, they're not necessarily recognizing it as being a digestive problem, because a lot of times things that happen in your gut can lead to other things that people don't necessarily associate. So even things like arthritis, autoimmune disease, and so much more can be affected by your gut health. Okay. And then Eli Mechkinoff, which if I'm saying his name wrong, I apologize, but he's a Nobel Prize winner and microbiologist who, in studying the gut, said that death begins in the colon, so our death begins in your gut, which is very true if it's not functioning the way that it should. And from his studies, he kind of showed that, disease and aging are mostly due to toxic bacteria in the gut. So we want to make sure we're treating our guts well, so that our body functions well also. Okay. So with that said, just kind of knowing the physiology behind the digestive tract, but your gastrointestinal system, it's essentially a long tube, right, running through your body. So it can be divided into two main parts. You have your alimentary tract, which is your organs that are doing the primary work of digestion, right? So starting with your mouth, all the way down to like your small intestine, rectum, etc. And then you have your accessory organs. So those are the organs that just kind of help aid in digestion. They have, different functions in some way for helping the gut work, right? Which is going to be like your liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. But your digestive tract is huge. So the surface area of the human gut can be up to 300 square meters, which is about the size of like a regulation size tennis court if you were to lay it all out straight. So there's a lot of surface area there. And then obviously a lot of things that are happening throughout that for your body to function the right way. In terms of what your digestive tract actually does from a functionality standpoint, so these are just some of the main things here. Your digestive tract, it's again the foundation of your health. It does a lot more than simply process the food that we eat. It influences a lot of aspects of your overall health. So poor digestive health, it can obviously influence your health and weight, but not necessarily in the ways that you always associate it. The main thing that people think of, when they think of digestion, or your digestive tract is digestion and absorption. So that's likely what most people think about. It's, your GI tract is responsible for breaking, down food into smaller particles or individual nutrients. But the process of actually digesting things can take anywhere from 3 to 10 hours. And then once that's finished, the GI tract, it's responsible for eliminating waste products, reabsorbing water, absorbing nutrients, and then, usable forms of macronutrients. So of your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. So that would be like utilizing glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids from them. And then also your micronutrients. So getting those vitamins and minerals that the food that you're eating is providing. And then aside from digestion and absorption, immunity and protection is also another huge benefit that your gut provides. So your gut houses up to 70% of your immunity. Okay, so that's a lot of your human immune system. 70% of it lies in your gut. Okay, and your gut flora can help your immune system by, one, it just provides a physical barrier by taking up space so that, foreign matter like bacteria, yeast, allergens, things like that can't accumulate. And then it also communicates with your immune system and kind of tells it not to attack good bacteria. Everyone has good and bad bacteria in their gut. We want there to be more good than bad, and we don't want your body to flush out the good. We want to keep that good because that's what helps it to function well. Okay, and then aside from that protection, you have over 100 trillion flora in the gut, and that flora can really help your immune system manufacture certain vitamins, protect us from, again, different harmful substances. And then hydrochloric acid, right, which is in your stomach, it's also essential for creating an optimal environment so that ideally, like, your bad bacteria stays inactive as long as your acidity level of your stomach is at the right amount. So if it's not at the right amount, that could allow that bad bacteria to become active and then cause a lot of digestive issues. Aside from that, hormonal balance is also a big thing, particularly with your thyroid hormones and your sex hormones. Up to 20% of your thyroid hormone has to be metabolized by the gut to become active. And then fiber that we consume, ideally, we'll get to the right types of foods you want to be consuming in just a moment, but fiber in the gut kind of binds to excess estrogen and can help get that out of your system as well. So from a sex hormone standpoint, it can help keep your hormone levels where you want them to be. And then also your nervous system. So there's more nerves in your GI tract than there are in your entire spinal cord. So our GI tract has, a nervous system that's called your enteric nervous system. Some people sometimes even refer to this as like your second brain, but the nervous system, it does more than like, if you find you get nervous and stressed, you kind of get those butterflies in your stomach that you feel. That's not really the only thing that it's doing there. It can also, influence our emotions and then a lot of underlying factors. So even things like anxiety, depression, IBS, ulcers, things like that can be affected by how our gut's functioning, which, kind of helps explain, why stress. We have a lot of different conditions that can alter our gut when we're stressed out. If anyone ever gets cramping or gas, bloating, some sort of indigestion or heartburn when they have a lot of stress going on, because that stress, can affect how your body runs. And then aside from that, obviously, appetite regulation and hormones of your digestive tract, it's another important function of your gut is going to be appetite regulation, which can play a big role for us in fat loss, right? So in regards to hormones of the digestive system that regulate your appetite, there's a lot of different things going on there, but kind of just to bring it down to a few things, ghrelin, some people have heard of leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin typically gets produced in your stomach and upper intestine when there's an absence of food to kind of signal to your body that you're hungry. So it will increase your appetite. And then as you're eating, peptide, YY, and leptin typically get secreted to signal to your body like, hey, I'm starting to fill up and stop. So if our gut isn't functioning well, this can cause some issues with that where we have a harder time regulating our appetite. So if your gut is compromised a little bit or functioning suboptimally, it can have a negative impact on that appetite control, which typically leads to an increase in food consumption. Okay, so just a few things to keep in mind when you're thinking of how your gut is functioning. The things on the left here are what people tend to think of when they think of, digestive issues or dysfunction. Basically is just not functioning optimally, right? But the gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, nausea type of things are what people typically associate with gut issues. But the ones on the right side here are all things that can be related to digestion, but they're kind of less often thought of as, that being a reason as to why. So even seasonal allergies, if the digestive tract is compromised or not functioning the best it can allow like partially digested food to enter your bloodstream instead of being digested. And then it kind of activates an immune response in your body to clean up the mess that's happening. So your body can almost become hypersensitized. And if that happens a lot over time, it can lead to people developing allergies over time. And then chronic sinusitis too. So basically your sinuses are an overflow for detox when your liver, your lungs, or kidneys can't really keep up with an increased toxic burden. So if you guys are consuming foods that maybe have, food dyes or other chemicals in there, we're exposed environmentally to different things, it can affect that too. And then skin issues. The skin's the largest organ of our body, right? So it's an important one for eliminating things out. When we sweat, we get toxins and things out of our system. But if your digestive system isn't functioning the right way, sometimes there's a greater chance for things like skin breakouts. And then even things like yeast infection, athlete's foot, fungal toenails. It's normal to have, some yeast and fungi in the digestive tract, but if there's an overabundance of it, it can lead to a lot of issues. And then even things like bad breath, mental fog, there's a strong connection between our gut health and then also, our mental health or brain functioning. So if there's an imbalance in that gut flora, it can kind of cause an inability to think clearly. And then, body aches, joint pain, headaches, anything that typically comes along with if, you're consuming something your body has a hard time with, or you have stress and your digestive tract is working on overdrive, it can lead to more increased inflammation in your body, which then can cause also those aches, joint pain, etc. So things to think of just in terms of what we're doing on, a daily basis to ensure that our gut is functioning the right way. So factors that can kind of affect how our body functions, medications and antibiotics kind of go together. Things we're exposed to through the air and environmental toxins, our eating habits and the food we're consuming, and stress are going to play big factors. So environmental toxins can be pollution, chemicals, additives in food, anything like that is going to play, a big role in terms of our overall health of the digestive system. So toxins can reduce the availability of different nutrients and energy that we need to digest things. So those toxins kind of just get in the way of our body doing all the internal processes that it needs to. So we want to try to minimize exposure where we can. And then medications and antibiotics. So whether it's an over-the-counter or prescription medication, sometimes it can be harmful to your digestive system and interrupt the natural digestive process. You know, some anti-inflammatory drugs can irritate your stomach lining, and then antibiotics, you know, the goal is to destroy whatever bacterial infection or anything you have going on, but it doesn't distinguish those antibiotics between good bacteria and bad bacteria. So typically the antibiotics will just destroy any bacteria that's there, and typically then will cause some digestive issues. If you guys notice, when you take antibiotics, sometimes your stomach has some issues with it. And then for diet and eating habits, so even just how you swallow your food, if you tend to be a really fast eater or you wolf things down in 2 bites, improper chewing can cause bloating and digestion too, because the food is going in so quickly. It can be really stressful on your body to actually break that food down. So if you are, can take your time and actually chew that food really thoroughly, where then your body produces more saliva, it gives your body a chance to actually secrete digestive enzymes to break your food down. That can help aid in digestion and causing less stress and strain on your digestive tract. And then from a dietary standpoint, what we eat, eating a lot of junk food or things that are kind of prepackaged, pre-processed, that are kind of lacking essential nutrients that our body needs to function, can cause more stress, more inflammation to our body as well. So we'll talk about foods you want to focus on in just a second, but we really want to try to minimize those processed, more junk convenience foods as much as we can. Okay, and then stress, your digestive system is controlled by your nervous system, right? So any kind of stress, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, can kind of affect your digestion. Okay. And then just keeping that good balance in your gut. This is just kind of showing that, healthy, permeable layer for your body in terms of letting in certain nutrients and keeping some out. But if you have an imbalance and your body is not functioning well, an imbalance of good and bad bacteria, basically harmful gut bacteria overgrows, and then it can cause a lot of issues where it kind of breaks apart that gut mucosa barrier, and then things get in that shouldn't. And it can lead to, leaky gut syndrome, which basically your body allows large particles and other toxins to enter the bloodstream, and can cause a lot of issues that way, and potentially lead to negative, autoimmune issues like lupus, RA, just to name a few of those. So we really want to keep the healthy gut, that gut membrane intact as best as possible by eating the right types of food, eating the right way, and not exposing ourselves to too many toxins, so that way your body will take in what it should, smaller bits of things that it needs, and then keep out the rest. Okay. So other things that are also associated with digestive health, again, digestive issues, it's more than just having annoyances like bloating and heartburn. So we want to make sure that everything's functioning the right way. These are just a few other things too that can come over time if you guys have digestive issues that you're kind of ignoring, or just like, oh, it's just this, it happens a little bit, you get so used to it. But over time, if those issues keep happening, if that inflammation is always present and slowly increases, it can lead to things like thyroid issues, hormone imbalances, anxiety, depression, insulin resistance, which can cause issues in terms of, weight gain, etc. And then other deficiencies if your body isn't processing and metabolizing food, the way that it should. So when it comes to things like food allergies and sensitivities, if we develop a food intolerance or sensitivity, it can kind of cause your immune cells to release inflammation, that then triggers a stress response and release of cortisol, right? Cortisol is your stress hormone. So if we eat a food that our body has a hard time digesting, or is a little bit sensitive to, that causes increased inflammation and then increased cortisol in your body, which can also affect your insulin receptors. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So if your body's not responding properly to that, it can also then cause weight gain. Okay, so in terms of what we can do then to keep our gut healthy, right? So one of the biggest factors is going to be nutrition, right? So Ideally eating whole and natural foods versus your processed foods. The less processed things are, the better. The more that food is in its actual natural state, the better your body is able to actually break that food down, take in the nutrients that are there that it needs, and then, digest the rest. Processed foods, so things basically, your sugar, your refined carbohydrates, those things we really want to try to minimize as much as possible, because, sugar and refined carbohydrates, they just fuel that bad bacteria. Bad bacteria feeds on simple sugars that we eat. That's what helps it to grow, where we want to have a higher amount of good bacteria than bad. So by eating real natural foods that are lower in sugar, hopefully it will help keep that bad bacteria in check and not lead to any issues. Okay. And then, organic, like if you're able to do organic foods, that's great with some things. They typically have every year, it gets released like the Dirty Dozen list. And those are just the 12 most likely to be contaminated fruits and vegetables in terms of, toxins or chemicals from how they're made. So if those ones you're able to get organic, I would, but if you're unable to, obviously eating fruit versus not, or vegetable versus not, some is going to be better, but trying to minimize those toxins where you can. And then aside from that, adequate protein intake. Protein, a lot of people live with poor digestion. They tend to be lower in that hydrochloric acid I mentioned before, which can also result in poor protein absorption. Protein, it has the amino acids in there that are kind of the building blocks, right, for our brain, neurotransmitters, so things that are important for your mood. So we want to make sure that when you're eating with all your main meals, you're getting in, a good type of protein coming in there. Okay. And whether it's chicken, eggs, fish, anything like that is fine. You could also do, tofu, your seeds, nuts, beans will have a little bit of protein in there as well, but we just want to make sure we're getting in enough during the day. And then aside from protein, making sure you're getting in enough fiber as well. Fiber is very important, one, for slowing down how quickly foods go into your system, so slowing down that digestive process, but also, you have soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber is what actually goes into your body, can cling to that bad cholesterol and things and help get it out of your system. And then insoluble fiber, your body can't really absorb, but that's what helps add bulk and push things through to keep you regular. So per day, you want between 25 to 38 grams of fiber for the average adult. 25 is really for females, up to 38 for males, depending on your size. So if you can work in some sort of fruit or vegetable or whole grain with your main meals, you should be getting enough fiber coming in there too. And typically, if you have like an apple, you'll get soluble and insoluble fiber. Most foods have both. The skin of an apple is insoluble, and then the inside of the apple has soluble fiber in there. So as long as you're eating the full foods, you should be getting both. And then another big factor for digestion is going to be hydration. So making sure that you're getting enough water coming in each day. Healthy digestion requires adequate fluid intake, right? So if you're not drinking enough, your colon can actually steal water from waste material and give it to your body, which that's what typically will cause your stools to be water deprived and, makes them harder. So it makes it harder to pass. So that's when people typically become constipated. So if you can try to aim to drink half your body weight in ounces of water per day, that should help keep you adequately hydrated, allow for all those internal processes your body needs to do to happen. And then just keep everything functioning smoothly, allowing your body to push everything out and have regular bowel movements if you're adequately hydrated. And then in addition to that, if you find that you're not getting enough fiber in your regular diet, or that's an area maybe you could use a little bit more, something like a fiber powder, so even like psyllium husk, that's a great high soluble fiber source. If you even were to add a scoop of that to like a protein shake, that's a great way to get some additional fiber in your day. If you have it plain, it doesn't necessarily taste the best. If you can mix it with water and have it that way, that's fine. But some people will use something like Metamucil occasionally that has a little bit of flavoring in there to it. That's fine as well. if you find you need it, but trying to get real food first is going to be ideal. And then also possibly something like a probiotic. You know, a probiotic, it's just a mega dose of good bacteria to kind of help, it will help your body digest food properly, but then it tries to help maintain that balance of good and bad bacteria so that the balance in your gut is in a good spot, to allow your body again to do all those digestive processes it needs to, and just keep that balance. If you do get a probiotic supplement, you want to make sure there's a couple different strands in it. You don't want one that just has one strand. Typically, the more that are in there. So if you get a couple different kinds, like I put the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium on here, if you at least have a couple different strands like that, that should definitely help. And then even if you cycle through it, so say you take a probiotic daily for a couple months, and then you do a couple months without it, that's fine too. It's not something you have to take every day for the rest of your life, but sometimes it can help just reset that bacterial balance in a good way in your gut. And then L-glutamine is also something that not everyone needs it, but it's also a possibility that could help, because it just helps support and maintain that gut barrier by promoting the reproduction of healthy intestinal cells. So hopefully it helps keep your gut functioning optimally as needed. And then in addition, to straight up nutrition, other lifestyle factors that are very important for keeping your gut healthy, stress management is one of those. To improve digestion, you really want to try to minimize stress and deal with the stress you do have in an appropriate way. You know, a lot of times if you have a lot of stress going on, it can affect your gut. Some people will either get constipated and have like delays in their bowel movements, and some people, the stress actually does the opposite and it increases transit time and they go more frequently. So it just depends on the person. But if you can do things to minimize that stress so your gut can kind of settle down a little bit, techniques like, you know, yoga, deep breathing, or doing some form of meditation, massage, you know, exercise, all of those things can also help improve your gut functioning. And then also another huge factor that a lot of people don't necessarily realize affects your digestion, but it's going to be sleep, right? So during the day, your body's working all day long at digesting the food that you've been eating. It needs a full night's sleep, you know, your digestive tract, so that it can recover, repair itself overnight, so that it can then digest food efficiently again the next day. If you just keep on eating and your digestive system is just constantly working and doesn't get any rest, it's going to be overworked and then start to digest food poorly. So you want to make sure you give it that break, ideally a good 7 to 8 hours of sound sleep each night, so then it can function well the next day. And obviously, in addition to a lot of other factors, all your hormones, everything like that, repairing the right way, sleep is going to be huge. And then in addition to that, just exercise, right? Exercise is also going to help improve your digestion. It's going to help ideally speed up transit time, bowel movements for you. And then also it's a great way to deal with stress, as I mentioned, which is going to help improve digestion, but aiming for at least, if you can, 5 days a week of at least 30 minutes of some sort of activity. And if you find that you have a very busy job, you know, and a lot going on, and it's hard to get that 30 minutes of continuous time, even if you break it up into 10-minute increments, or just try to move more during the day, the more you move, that should also help your digestive tract function better too. Okay. And then, so just kind of a couple things to think about, but just remember that your digestive system is very closely linked to your health. You know, again, about 70% of your immunity is housed in your gut. So we want to make sure that we're good to it. We're putting in the right types of foods that have, you know, the most nutrient content in there, the least amount of sugar and processed things that can lead to more inflammation. We want to try and decrease that inflammation so your gut can function better by, you know, making sure you're following healthy eating habits and lifestyle habits that can kind of help contribute to positive things from a digestive health standpoint. So staying active, getting enough sleep, and then being mindful of the foods you're consuming, and really just trying to stay away from sugary, prepackaged, pre-made foods as much as you can, so that we allow your body the best chance possible to digest that food properly and keep your gut running as best it can. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that just gives you guys a little bit better understanding of how your body actually runs and what a big part of how you feel during the day your digestive tract actually is. So we just want to make sure that we're treating it well, putting in the right things. And if you find you're a person who does have some of those issues that were mentioned and they, happen on a regular basis, we might want to take a look at what you're eating, just your general like lifestyle habits. Are you sleeping enough? So some different factors to kind of possibly modify to help reset your gut and help it function better. But if you, don't ignore the symptoms that you have, if something's happening, it's your body's way of telling you, hey, it either doesn't like something that's coming in there or something is affecting you in a negative way. So we want to try to figure out what's causing that so that your body can function as optimally as possible. Okay. But if anyone has any questions at all, I'm happy to stay on and answer anything for you guys. Otherwise, my email is also on here, and then just the general Arch Amenity nutrition email is on here too. So if anyone has any questions at all, you're welcome to ask any of us. And then if anyone also, there is another seminar tonight at 5 p.m. I believe, where we are learning how to cook once and eat twice. So feel free to join that one too. And then one person just asked, how many grams of protein should one have in a day? So it varies a little bit from person to person, just depending on general lifestyle factors. But typically it's 0.8 grams per like kilogram of body weight is kind of the minimum that people recommend. So usually if you even just take half your body weight, so say you're 150 pounds, you want to aim for about 70 to 75 grams of protein per day. And then that, like, again, it could vary a little bit depending on how active you are, but that's also something that you could do. And then, sorry, just going back. You could also, and someone just asked, is a steam or sauna a good idea to promote sweating? Is it a good idea for gut health? So typically, if an infrared sauna is typically what I've read the most is going to be the most beneficial in terms of getting toxins out of your body. But typically doing the sauna versus a sauna is going to be better for you in terms of like detoxifying. Steam is kind of like a moist heat when you go in there, where the sauna is a little bit drier. So when you first go in, you're not sweating initially. It takes a little bit for your body to build up that sweat and kind of push things out through your skin. So you could definitely do the sauna if that's something you wanted to add to your routine. Just be mindful, again, from like a health standpoint, if anyone does have any health risks, but a sauna is a good way to get toxins out of your body as well. And then, do fermented foods help with gut health? Fermented foods, so that's basically going to be like a probiotic, prebiotic mix, depending on what you have. So even things, whether you're talking about like kombucha or sauerkraut, things like that, those are actually not bad things to work into your diet. If you like them, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to eat them all day, every day, but if you work that in occasionally, that's going to be a good way to naturally get in some like good bacteria for your body that it can actually help also from a gut health standpoint. So you could also consume those, and that should be fine for you. And lentils are perfectly fine. Some people, there are healthy foods that some people are sensitive to. Lentils and beans, they're just higher in fiber per serving. So you just want to be mindful of how big of a portion you're having, because sometimes a lot of fiber coming in at once. Again, fiber slows down digestion, but you want to break apart your fiber throughout the day so it's not all coming in at one time. If you find that, lentils or beans make you feel a little bit gassy or anything, you could either decrease the portion a little bit. If you find it happens all the time, maybe that's a food you're a little bit sensitive to, but lentils are good, that high fiber in terms of adding bulk, pushing things through your system. It should also help in terms of keeping you regular as long as your body digests it fine. And then I can send you to the specifics on how much L-glutamine is recommended. Again, it's going to vary a little bit depending on the person, but if you send me a separate email, I can send you the exact amount that'd be recommended for you. And then consumption of wine or other alcohol on gut health. Wines and things, if you have them in moderation, typically one like 4-ounce glass a day for females and then 1 to 2 per male typically is fine, and it shouldn't affect you negatively from a health standpoint. If you do find sometimes the type of wine you have, so some wines will have sulfites and things in there that those toxins sometimes cause people to have more headaches, or they feel puffier or not as good when they're consuming those. So if you get one that's free of that, and then I would just try to do more of a drier wine versus a dessert wine. Just the dessert wines tend to be sweeter, so they have more sugar added to them. So that I would just try to minimize, but otherwise that if you were to do the same with other types of alcohol, if you have a little bit of, 1 shot of hard alcohol, so like that 1 ounce, again, similar serving, 1 to 2 per day for males, 1 for female should be fine. It's typically the added sugars that people mix things with. So whether it's soda, juice, things like that, that's what can cause more digestive issues. But just be mindful of how much you're having. Some people find they do feel more inflamed when they have alcohol, and their body may just be more sensitive. So you may not want to consume that regularly. Okay. And then, sorry, I'm trying to go through them all. Tips for dealing with frequent heartburn. So heartburn is one of those things that if you find it's something you have a lot of the time, it could relate to the acidity level in your stomach, but it also could be the types of food that you're consuming. So sometimes even those sugary foods and things like that I mentioned, those can actually lead to like heartburn and other issues for you too, because it's harder, it's more stressful on your body and can cause more inflammation, which sometimes then leads to the heartburn. So if you kind of look back at what you're eating, see if there is a higher like processed carbohydrate or higher sugar content in your diet. Otherwise, trying to just eat as anti-inflammatory as possible. So like the more real foods you consume, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats, your body tends to function better with those things in there. If you also the same, you could always send us a sample of what a day looks like for you, and we can take a look at it and see if there's anything small in there that we could see that could possibly be causing an issue in regards to heartburn. Okay. And then, sorry, 1 more questions on here. I think I have issues with insulin resistance. What should I be eating more of, or how do I figure out how to eat? So sometimes, I mean, it can be helpful to have like myself or another dietitian. We can always, look very specifically at what you guys are eating, because everyone's going to be a little bit different, right, in terms of how their body functions, if they have any other potential issues going on in there. So a lot of times in terms of the balance of your plate can be huge in terms of how your body breaks that food down, digests it. Ideally, like with your main meals, my basic rule of thumb is just having some source of protein, some source of healthy fat, and then some source of fiber. So those things together, the protein, the healthy fat, and the fiber help slow down digestion. So they slow down how fast your blood sugar goes up. If you just eat carbohydrates by themselves, they're going to shoot your blood sugar up really quickly. And then that insulin is going to get secreted, right, to counteract it, which can be really stressful on your body and cause more inflammation and issues. So we want to try and eat a nice balanced meal every time. If you even want to just, again, you can send to my email a sample day. I'm happy to talk you through any questions you have specifically. And then in terms of coffee, caffeine, intermittent fasting, things like that affecting your gut health, intermittent fasting, it shouldn't affect your gut health in a negative way unless in that smaller window of time that you're eating. And it all comes down to the quality of what you guys are consuming, right? So if you're eating the right quality of foods, the right balance, it should be perfectly fine from a gut health standpoint, because you're actually, giving your body a window of time while fasting that you're allowing your gut to reset itself and rest. So that should be perfectly okay. Caffeine wise, typically the equivalent of 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day for anyone is the max of what's recommended. Beyond that, caffeine, it's an adrenal stimulant. So if you have too much of it, it can actually cause cortisol and other things to increase too, which then, that cortisol is going to negatively affect your body and digestion a little bit. So typically, 1 to 2 cups of coffee is between, it's around like 200 milligrams of caffeine per day. But again, depending on size and stuff, it may vary a little bit from person to person. Okay. I'm sorry. One more question here, guys, I think, and then I've got them. Do artificial sweeteners affect gut health? So artificial sweeteners, like typically they're chemicals, right? So anything that your body doesn't know how to process or digest tend to go to your fat stores, right? So your fat stores, you have a certain number of fat stores that are set, but they can increase and shrink depending on what you're eating. So those artificial sweeteners, like they can sometimes go into those fat stores and take up space, so they get in the way of your body ideally metabolizing and burning off that fat the way that it should. So if you're doing something more like stevia, which is a natural sweetener, non-caloric sweetener, you know, that your body can process a little bit better versus things like Splenda or I'm thinking of saccharin, sucrose, those things you want to be mindful of. They don't have calories in there, but they can affect your body in a negative way, the artificial sweeteners. So I would also try to minimize those when you can. If you have them occasionally, it should be okay. But if it's something you're having on a regular basis, then that could be potentially exposing you to more, you know, toxins and chemicals than you want. So your body may not be functioning as efficiently as it can. And then, so if you do have, sorry, the last question here, is there a way to lower the acidity in your stomach? So a lot of it, again, you could also email and we can send you a list of like high acidity promoting foods, low acidity promoting foods, but the best way to just keep your gut functioning the best way possible and allowing that stomach acid to stay like in a good spot is going to be eating a well-balanced diet and just following those basic tips from the previous slide, just in regards to eating whole real foods as much as you can, trying to minimize added sugars, any other processed foods. Really the quality of what you consume is what's going to allow your gut to function the best way possible. So, you know, trying to minimize, even like when you get beef and things like organic grass-fed beef typically should be better for you, right, than a mass processed one that has a lot of chemicals, things in it. So like the quality, you know, wild caught fish versus farm raised. The wild caught should be higher in omega-3s, which is a natural anti-inflammatory, higher in, you know, healthy fat than the ones that are mass produced. So you just want to try to, you know, eat the best quality food possible, and it should allow your body to function as best as possible too. Okay. But if anyone has any other questions, please let me know. Again, my email is on here too. If you have a question more specifically related to you, feel free to email myself or nutrition at Archimenity, and we're happy to help you guys out with any and all questions that you may have.